Today on American Strangeness, El Paso's Buried City and the King of Bilk, Part 2, A Thorough and Unmitigated Scoundrel. On July 9, 1873, 27-year-old Reuben Berson found himself at London's Old Bailey being sentenced to 5 years of penal servitude on the charge of bigamy. Berson had advertised extensively in the matrimonial news, seeking wives, and, via flowery letters, had become engaged to about a dozen women in the course of a few months. This resulted in Berson's marriage to 24-year-old Emily Sarah Bolton of Southsea, after falsely representing himself as a wealthy Presbyterian clergyman with high honors and a doctorate in philosophy from the University of Cambridge. Bolton's father eventually discovered the deception, but not until he had advanced Berson £200 based on a supposed £800 a year job offer at a Brazilian college. It was discovered that Berson was already married to another woman, Emily Gambier Kidd, who was a student in his German class at the Royal School. Berson had, true to form, attained a position there as a principal assistant master based on false qualifications. Kidd's father had agreed to the marriage based on a forged telegram offering Berson a £300 salary as a schoolmaster. After securing Gambier Kidd's hand in marriage, Berson had treated her poorly and abandoned her. Berson was also indicted for subordination of perjury after attempting to induce another young woman he had seduced, and incidentally taught and corresponded with in Arabic to help him. Berson was reported in one source to have been fluent in at least 7 or 8 languages. Berson had urged her to send a forged letter from the court prosecutor telling the minister who conducted Berson's first marriage that he was not needed to testify. Also, among Berson's papers was found a summons for unpaid support to yet another woman with whom he had sired an illegitimate child. Berson served his time, but upon his release in 1878 was arrested by Scotland Yard for separate crimes committed before his imprisonment. In 1873, glass merchant Johann Oman had hired Berson to conduct English correspondence at his firm in Tiefenbach, Austria. The position came with free lodging and an apartment at Oman's house. Berson convinced his new employer to advance him a portion of his annual salary, as his funds were supposedly tied up for weeks in foreign banks. The next day, Berson cleared the apartment of furniture, linens, and dishware and fled to England. Finally apprehended for robbing Oman, Austria's ambassador demanded that Berson be extradited to face charges of larceny or embezzlement. Berson, representing himself against one of the justices' advice, failed miserably at his appeal to the British court and was placed in custody awaiting extradition. Berson, going by Reuben Agabus Berson Allander, was a free man by 1880 and working as a tutor in Hull. During this time, Berson filed a legal complaint against a 15-year-old boy for defamatory libel, and was intending to file further complaints against additional parties. Berson alleged that all of them had written letters to the London and Westminster Quarterly Review that defamed his character and alleged crimes of a most revolting and infamous nature. By 1884, Berson had relocated to the United States and was posing as Dr. Archibald Richard. Amusingly, a Mr. Archibald from the Treasury had appeared opposite Berson in his appeal against extradition to Austria. Berson arrived in St. Louis from Chicago in the fall of 1884. He presented himself as an Episcopalian minister and clergyman from the Church of England who had graduated from Oxford University with a doctorate in law. Claiming to be ill and destitute, Berson appealed for charity to local church leaders and professors from Washington University, who would later denounce him as, quote, an utterly unscrupulous and untrustworthy impostor, in a letter to the San Francisco Examiner. These community leaders provided Berson with letters of recommendation, as Archibald Richard, helping him procure lucrative employment as a teacher. Berson quickly accumulated debts with landlords, housekeepers, and merchants. He then stealthily fled the city, leaving those who trusted and vouched for him to pay off his unsettled balances. Berson's aggrieved victims in St. Louis described him as follows. He is about 40 years old and perhaps 5 feet 5 inches in height. His figure is slender. He has a prominent nose, and his hair, which is dark, curly and slightly touched with gray, is parted in the middle. He wears a mustache and chin whiskers. His voice is feeble and his manner fawning. He uses his physical weakness as a pathetic and effective means of deception. The examiner went so far as to contact Oxford University, which found no record of an Archibald Richard and feared he might be an adventurer and his history a romance. However, they were of course searching for Berson's alias, so they weren't going to find him. Oxford University's records do show that Reuben Berson of Tarnow, Austria, son of Moses Berson, attended New College, matriculating in 1869 at age 23. However, Oxford's alumni records do not show that Berson completed any academic degrees. In any case, he did convince professional academia and clergy that he was a learned man. Berson attempted to re-establish himself as Dr. Archibald Richard in Berkeley, California, but was quickly denounced as dishonest. Seeking a new beginning, he erased his former alias in the letters of recommendation he still had from St. Louis and subbed in his new moniker, Reverend Dr. Leo Berson. The con artist arrived in San Diego in April 1885, claiming he had relocated from New York for his health. The San Diego Union was soon hot on Berson's trail and published an expose in July 1885. The Union takes no pleasure in exposing a fraud, the paper wrote, but a newspaper owes something to the public. Protection from professional deadbeats is one of a newspaper's duties to the public. The Union tracked his movements since Chicago, connecting Richard to Berson. Berson pleaded with the Union's readers to dismiss these accusations against his character. He reminded them that he had been offering a series of free lectures in recent months. San Diegans, Berson wrote, I hope you will not allow yourself to be tossed by mere winds from your good senses. I have come here to reside in your midst, to devote all the energy of my power to your interest, and to serve you faithfully. Ye have had opportunity to know me. I appeal to you for a fair chance in trial, that I may make an honest living here by devoting all my usefulness to your best and highest moral, intellectual interests. Shortly afterward, Berson established the San Diego College for Young Ladies and Young Gentlemen, serving as principal, with the help of generous investors. The college offered both primary and higher education classes, as well as a business program, evening adult classes, and Sunday lectures on scripture and science. While the media would describe Berson as a Christianized Jew, he would deny this description and state, I am a Hebrew and am glad of it. No, I have never left nor will ever leave Judaism. Despite this, Berson would frequently speak to Christian audiences on topics that blended both faiths and science. His lectures included such topics as Jews, past, present, and future, as ought to be viewed by Gentile Christians, and the natural, moral, and mental philosophy of Christ's three temptations in the wilderness, incorporating the laws of nature, geology, chemistry, botany, and anatomy. As a presenter, he was once described as speaking brokenly or with an accent, but in pure Oxford English and having command of a whopping 27 languages. By the summer of 1886, Berson was burning his bridges in San Diego. He had abandoned his school and aligned himself with Madame Josephine de Flot and her husband, Dr. Paul de Flot. Madame de Flot was a French con artist who presented herself as a miracle doctor that could cure a multitude of ailments. She drove through town in a golden horse-drawn chariot. Later that year, she would swindle money from a group of parents in Oregon with claims she could cure their children's deafness. In San Diego, Berson served as a private secretary and interpreter for the de Flots while they maintained residence in Horton House, where Berson had held classes in his institute's dying days. Madame du Flot would station her gilded chariot on the hotel's plaza in the evenings, selling medicines, cures, and even supposedly painless teeth extraction to the public. But one Sunday night in late June, the du Flots and Berson skipped town, leaving several patients with paid receipts for Monday appointments. The community was grateful to the de Flots for ridding it of a deadbeat, wrote the San Diego Union of Berson's departure. Berson landed by himself in San Francisco shortly after, with the de Flots having gone on to ply their quackery in San Jose. Since parting ways with the de Flots, Berson reportedly made several attempts to marry wealthy women. This was doomed to fail, stated the Record of National City, California, with Berson's, quote, personal appearance undoubtedly working to his disadvantage, for he was very insignificant in size, endowed with a humped back, hooked nose, and squeaky voice, and carried about him the air of a fawning sycophant. Though a professional con artist, Berson, then in his 40s, appeared vulnerable when it came to younger ladies of the fairer sex. While still posing as Archibald Richard in St. Louis in early 1885, Berson proposed to a 21-year-old named Jessie Smith and gave her between $600 to $700 to prepare for the wedding. When the time for the nuptials arrived, she told Berson she would never marry him and threatened suicide. She then departed for Evansville, Indiana, taking with her one of Berson's manuscripts he claimed was worth $100,000 and $300 to $400 worth of property from his residence. Berson later claimed that the whole matter was a misunderstanding, that Smith was only his pupil and housekeeper, and that she had only gone to visit a sick relative in Indiana, and that the manuscript had been found. In the fall of 1886, Berson was once again shot senseless by Cupid. He wrote to the San Francisco Matrimonial Bureau, hoping to find a wife. The Bureau matched him with a young lady named Kate Grant. He was delighted upon meeting her and took her to theaters and dinners, and on many drives and excursions. He spent approximately $1,500 on dresses, hats, and other expenses to make her happy. As told in the Los Angeles Herald, at last the day for the wedding came, and the doctor called at the house of the affianced, only to find her flown. By letters found in a satchel left behind, the hitherto happy doctor discovered that he had courted a woman who had been 3 times married and was undivorced. Heartbroken, the doctor returned to San Diego. The woman is well known in this city and in Portland, Oregon, where one of her husbands resides. Burn! Part 3, Berson Gets Stung by the Bee, is coming up next. See you then.